Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
I'm 35, and my wife is 31. We haven't been intimate in 6 months, and I'm unsure how to handle the situation. We have 2 young boys, one who is 3 years old and the other who is 1.5, and we're currently in the process of building a house. I'm not the type to let problems fester. I prefer to address issues quickly. So, I started a conversation with my wife to understand what was happening. I asked her why she had stopped talking to me, hugging me, and kissing me. I also wanted to know why she seemed to mind my touch. At first, she was reluctant to discuss it, but eventually, she opened up. What I learned was quite shocking. She feels I'm not enough for her and that she's handling everything on her own. She feels like she has to make all the decisions and take care of the kids by herself, and she even mentioned that I'd be better off alone. While I'm an introvert, I'm not an extreme one. I accepted what she said and expressed that I understood her feelings. I assured her that I would work on my behavior to reduce her stress. I love her deeply and prefer to keep the peace rather than argue. However, I do have my own thoughts that keep me up at night. I feel there are significant discrepancies in her claims about me, as I believe I'm fulfilling the role of a good husband. I work around 8 to 9 hours a day, and afterward, I take care of the boys, playing with them, feeding them, taking the older one to the pool, and putting them to bed. I also wake up in the middle of the night when needed. Besides caring for the kids, I help manage the household as well. I handle the dishes, grocery shopping, and do some cleaning around the house, although she prefers to clean herself because she thinks I'm not very efficient at it. I take care of car maintenance, manage things related to the new house, and do a lot to make her life easier. I understand that it's tough with 2 little boys. However, I'm not a naturally proactive person. There are those who can't sit on the couch for 5 minutes without thinking about what to fix or what business to start. Her father is like that, but I'm not. Once the day is over, the kids are asleep, and everything is done. I prefer to relax by watching a movie or playing video games to unwind. I'm not one to start my own business. I excel in my field but prefer being given direction and doing my job well. I don't aspire to have a spectacular career or millions in the bank. I just want a happy, healthy family and to earn a decent living. I've come to realize that she has started to have an issue with my approach, despite us being happily married for 4 years and together for 5 years before that. Our conversation in December prompted me to start working against my natural tendencies, making an effort to be more proactive, like doing extra grocery shopping and tackling household repairs instead of taking time to relax in the evenings. While she appreciated these changes, it didn't alter her feelings towards me. I felt the need to initiate a second conversation about our marriage. When I asked her if she wanted to save it, she responded, "I don't know." It was hard to hear, but I felt I had to ask her if she was open to marriage counseling. She replied, "I don't know," and I emphasized that it wasn't a time for uncertainty, especially with our kids potentially facing the reality of having separated parents. After that, she agreed. So I took the initiative to find a therapist. During our talk, she revealed some painful truths. She married me to impress her parents and her married sisters, aiming for the image of a big, happy family with beautiful children. She admitted that she felt enchanted by me at the time, but wasn't truly in love. I also discovered that she had met with her priest to discuss our marriage, which was tough to digest. I found a good therapist, and we're now about to have our 3rd session. We learned that we have different love languages. I need physical touch, while she prefers acts of service. However, despite starting counseling, she hasn't been giving me any physical affection. After the 2nd session, I asked her how she felt about the process, and all she expressed was discomfort with having to share our personal lives with a stranger. When the therapist learned that we haven't been sleeping in the same room for 6 months, she was shocked. My wife explained that she was co-sleeping with the kids, and there simply wasn't room for me. The therapist pointed out that it sets a poor example for the kids not to allow their father into the bedroom, suggesting that if there's no space on the bed, we could go to IKEA and get a single bed to place next to the big one. I did just that. I bought the bed, put it together, and now I'm sleeping there. The funny thing is, I still feel alone. My wife is far to the left, the boys are in the middle, and I'm on the far right. Since this issue began, my wife has changed her narrative a bit. She now claims she's been feeling depressed from being home with the kids all the time, and says that she said those hurtful things because she was too emotional. I would never say anything like that to her, but I feel like I have to believe her. Recently, she went back to work, and we hired a nanny. The only change in her behavior is that we've started talking again, but I'm not just her friend. I'm her husband, and there's still no intimacy. It doesn't look like things are going to improve. There are no signs of it. She seems indifferent about our upcoming marriage counseling sessions. I find myself having to schedule them, and when I mention them, she insists she doesn't need it at all, doing it only because I wanted to. I've started to feel like an abuser. She's never been overly enthusiastic about intimacy. We used to have it once a week, which was fine for me. Could have been more often, but it was okay. This year, we've only had sex twice, and both times felt like pity sex. One time was at the beginning of January for my birthday, and now it seems I have to have a special occasion just to get laid. The other time was after a counseling session, but she just lay there, covering her chest and waiting for me to finish. That experience made me lose interest altogether. It's not just about the lack of intimacy. Whenever I bring up the topic, my wife simply responds, "That's who I am. If you don't like it, just leave me." I feel lost and unsure about what to do. There was one troubling incident when my wife tried to call her ex-boyfriend 4 times in a row at 10 p.m. I knew about it because we used to have an app that showed incoming and outgoing calls for both our numbers. After that, I felt frantic. Why was she calling her ex at such a late hour? I decided to check her messages on her laptop, which felt terrible, but I felt justified given the situation. When I confronted her about the calls, she initially lied and said she hadn't called him, but when I showed her the app with the outgoing calls, she had no choice but to admit it. I asked her why she was trying to reach him, and she explained that she was just calling back because he had previously called her. When I asked her if she had messaged him, she said no, but I then showed her the message she sent, where she stated she was going to keep calling until he picked up and talked to her like a normal person. She claimed he had gotten drunk and called her, saying some nonsense, and when she heard that, she told him to F off and hung up. She felt guilty about the calls and attempted to reach him multiple times when he didn't pick up. Eventually, she sent a message, but he didn't reply. I'm at a loss about how to interpret this. It happened around the time she started distancing herself from me. In her mind, there's nothing strange or wrong about keeping this from me. To her, it's not important. For me, any contact with an ex is a huge red flag, and I can't accept it. I can't help but wonder if she's cheating. We haven't had intimacy in 6 months, which coincides with when the calls took place. It seemed like something out of a movie, something I never thought my wife would do. However, today my perspective changed drastically. I feel foolish for being just another statistic, but I guess that's how life is sometimes. I know I promised to confront her ex and speak to her family, but I decided to take a step back and remain calm. Can you believe how simple it was? I installed a voice-activated recorder in our car, nothing too elaborate. It only took 3 days for her to use the car for work and then go to a workout. During that time, she had a video conversation with him. I don't know who initiated the call, but I heard every word. They spoke about personal things, intimacy, and their lives, joking and laughing like we used to when we first met 9 years ago. There was a chemistry between them that I haven't experienced with her in a long time. She even talked about planning a vacation to visit him this July and gave him a 2-year time frame to move back to our country. I can't believe what I heard. After listening to an hour of this recording, I have a lot to process. I need to meet with an attorney next week. I just wanted to express my gratitude. You opened my eyes. If it weren't for you, I would never have bought that voice recording device, and I initially felt guilty about placing it in the car. I can't believe it. Right now, I need to take a step back and process everything while thinking about my kids and what she's done. They started their affair in September of last year, and it took me 2 months to notice the changes in her behavior. I'll be taking care of my elderly father for the entire next week in another city, which means she won't be going to work. Instead, she'll be using my home office. This likely means she'll be talking to him in there. Should I place the recorder in the office for the week, or do I already have enough evidence? As for the updates, it's clear that I've been out of the picture for a long time. She doesn't want to spend any time with me in our rented apartment. She's always busy with other things, going to her parents, friends, etc. She even goes to sleep or just lies down in bed after we put the kids to sleep, 1 and 3 years old. The recordings reveal everything. She talks about how she loves him, her desire to visit him, and their intimate life together. They discuss his interests, and she has said she wants to go on vacation with him. She even mentioned that she plans to become his wife and leave me soon, along with discussing his favorite intimate positions. So yes, it's clear they've been intimate. It's all there. The thing is, she has no idea that I know everything. Her family and friends are unaware of the situation. They just think we're experiencing a temporary crisis. She's one of 3 sisters and is Catholic, attending church every Sunday. We live in a small town with a population of around 20,000, and we recently built a house, although it's still not finished. I have a strong feeling she will file for divorce soon. It's evident she is struggling to cope with living together in the apartment. Her body language and complete lack of conversation make it clear. She seems to want me out so that once I'm gone, her affair partner, AP, can move back to this town within 2 years and live with her in our house, along with our two young boys. In one of the recordings, she mentioned giving him 2 years to return to our country. People will likely accept that she needs a father figure for her children and won't question her decisions. The AP is her first boyfriend, and they were together for 7 years before she married me. We have been together for 9 years. The AP lives abroad but visits our country frequently. I refuse to be played like this. I now have an attorney and will be meeting with him soon to discuss my situation. I also have enough evidence that could potentially damage her reputation if I chose to share parts of the recording. I'm seeking advice on what to do when she serves me divorce papers. My attorney mentioned that my documents will take a month to prepare. I never imagined I would have to deal with someone like her. I met with my attorney and learned some important information. It turns out that trying to completely undermine her world wouldn't be wise, primarily because we have kids and will need to co-parent for the next 15 to 16 years. Additionally, I have a lot of respect for her family and don't want to involve them as witnesses in the divorce. Realistically, I wouldn't win custody of the kids, as they are small and need to be with their mother, who lives an hour away in the capital city. This means I would likely be an every other weekend dad. Moreover, I wouldn't have the authority to sell our house since the kids require stable living conditions, and they currently live in a property owned by her father, which is only temporary. As frustrating as it is, that's the reality here in Poland. After our conversation, the attorney sent her the divorce papers, which were scheduled to be delivered right after Easter. In Poland, this holiday lasts for 2 days, Sunday and Monday. I managed to maintain the facade during this time, using alcohol to help. On Tuesday, I took a day off work to care for our 1-year-old son while she went to work in the capital. Meanwhile, my brother assisted me in moving my belongings from the apartment into his car. The postman delivered the divorce papers, which actually served as an invitation to mediation to settle things amicably. The papers state that she is in a relationship with her affair partner, AP, and that this is the reason for the divorce. The evidence I have will serve as leverage when discussing child support and other matters. When she came home, I confronted her, stating that I knew everything and had irrefutable proof. I expressed how deeply hurt I was and told her she needed to contact my lawyer. I then handed her the divorce papers and left to visit her parents. Of course, she started questioning me about what I knew and how I found out, denying everything. However, her parents were shocked but believed me. I recorded the entire conversation as my attorney advised. I began by asking if they thought I was a good, caring husband and father, to which they agreed. This way, she can't use them as witnesses against me in court. They understood the gravity of her actions and recognized how she had destroyed our lives and those of our children. I thanked them for their understanding and then went to the capital city. I called a friend to help spread the news to her friends. Just 2 hours later, my brother-in-law called to inform me that she had admitted to cheating on me with the AP, although she didn't acknowledge that they had actually been intimate. He informed me that everyone is on my side and that she has destroyed our family. He mentioned that her sister visited my soon-to-be ex-wife and told her how evil her actions are. However, he also noted that there is a possibility of saving the situation, sharing that he himself cheated on his wife, who forgave him, and now they are very happy together. Then, her father called me and acknowledged that it was entirely her fault, expressing that she doesn't fully grasp the extent of her actions. He stated that the affair partner, AP, will never be allowed in his house and that he would stop providing financial support to my soon-to-be ex-wife. He even attempted to call the AP but didn't get an answer. In the end, he mentioned that he believes the marriage can be salvaged. Finally, her other sister texted me, offering her full support but also expressing a belief that the situation could still be repaired. This worries me because I genuinely don't think it can be saved. I'm confident about that. I'm concerned that they might cling to the notion that I lack a definitive piece of evidence, like a tape of them together, which could undermine my reasons for leaving her. I do have recordings of her making comments like, "Make sure you last more than 3 seconds when I come to visit you in Holland," and "I wonder if your dad's stuff is the same as yours." You know what? I'll ask that woman how long your brother's stuff is, and I'll tell her how long yours is. She expressed her feelings by saying, "I love you. I'm going to leave my husband." She even asked me to record myself and send her a video discussing her favorite position, which she referred to as crappy style with the back straight. She was essentially showing me how her life with him would look and stated, "I'm giving you 2 years to move back here." Furthermore, right after our confrontation, she told me that she never stopped loving him. To me, that's proof enough of her feelings. Right now, as many of you mentioned, she is starting to crawl back after her family confronted her about the situation. She's been sending me texts saying things like, "I didn't know what I was doing. I can't imagine living without you. I'm so sorry for everything I've done. I'm waiting with the kids for your return. She even claimed that she didn't mean to say she always loved him. I can't shake the feeling that they're trying to make me think I rushed into divorce because I don't have the actual tape of them together. They don't know the full extent of my proof, and she isn't admitting to having had sex with him. It's believable since he's in Holland, but he could have easily visited her here. When she was served, I thought that she would likely start crawling back to save face with her family and to get me back because she needs help with our 2 little boys. That's exactly what's happening. She began messaging me on Messenger, but not too frequently. The messages are all quite similar, expressing, "I can't imagine my life without you. I love you and only you." She sent some photos of our kids, along with messages like, "We're waiting for you and love you very much." However, it's been 5 weeks, and she hasn't called or visited me once. She's had plenty of opportunities to stop by, literally driving past my parents' house, where I'm currently staying. Instead, I've only received intermittent messages from her. We've seen each other a few times while exchanging the kids, but she hasn't attempted to apologize or have a meaningful conversation. It's just been a quick hi and bye. On the other hand, her family has started to communicate with me much more frequently. Her father called me twice, and her mother sent me a dozen texts with links to Christian pages discussing forgiveness. One of her sisters reached out, apologizing and suggesting that my wife has been possessed by some evil spirit. Meanwhile, the other sister acknowledged how my wife ruined our family and indicated she doesn't expect me to return to her. My brother-in-law even came over to take me out for a beer. He wasn't trying to persuade me. It felt more like a conversation about what happened and what the future might look like if I don't come back. He'd like me to return, but he wasn't pushing for it. Overall, all of these discussions conveyed a sense of disbelief at my wife's actions. They expressed a desire for me to return to her, but also conveyed understanding if I chose not to. However, the day came when I made my decision, and my lawyer informed her lawyer that I couldn't forgive her and wanted a divorce. My lawyer presented my terms, and now we're waiting for her lawyer's response. While I waited for their answer, her sister began blaming me, insisting that I would destroy the marriage. She was very clear that it was my wife who initiated this by being selfish, but now, she claims my wife is very sorry, crying, and wishing she could turn back time. Suddenly, it's me who's being labeled as selfish for wanting a divorce. Her sister argued that I could cancel the divorce and just come back to raise our 2 boys, without needing to reconcile with my wife. She told me how full of anger I was and warned that it would only grow over time. Her sister insisted I should simply suck it up and continue living with my wife, framing this divorce as a form of revenge on her, while also claiming it would hurt our children. I knew from others that this shift would happen, but it's still shocking to experience it firsthand. I confronted my sister-in-law, and the tension in the room was palpable. "Look," I said, keeping my voice steady but firm, "if you truly want to make things right, I'll forgive your sister. If you sleep with me for the next whole week. I also need to know if your husband will welcome you back to his bed after I am done with you." Her eyes widened in shock, but before she could respond, her husband jumped in. "I don't condone what this woman has done," he said coldly. "If my wife ever treated me like that, I wouldn't think twice about throwing her out on the streets." He looked at his wife and told her, "Have your thoughts straight, woman. No man would take a 304 back. You may call it liberating, but remember actions have consequences. Now that I have seen your thoughts, you better fall in line, or you will be one for the streets. I give you my word for it." Her sister had no other option than to hold her tongue. Today, I felt guilty, questioning whether it was my fault that my wife treated me poorly for over half a year, emotionally and physically abandoning me. It's tough to grapple with the narrative that I'm the one who is abandoning our kids. They're really swaying me hard, but I remain firm. The divorce will happen. It seems like they're painting me as the bad guy. I'm struggling to come up with a way to silence her family's criticisms about me abandoning our kids. In Poland, it's often expected for small children, like ours, to remain close to their mother in the event of a divorce. It's been 2 months since that fateful day when I confronted her, handed her the divorce papers, and moved to the capital city, an hour away from the small town where we once lived together. Right now, I'm crashing on my parents' couch, and it's far from ideal. Their living room has turned into a makeshift workspace and entertainment area, with my clothes draped over every available chair. I'm working from home for 8 hours a day, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. After work, I help my elderly parents, who are 88 and 71, with daily chores, do the groceries, and drive them to doctor appointments. It's a lot, but I find solace in keeping busy. I also hit the gym or catch a movie whenever I can to escape the whirlwind of negative thoughts swirling in my mind about everything that has transpired. I get to see my kids every weekend. Their mother drops them off, and I drive them back to her at the end of the weekend. Those moments with my boys are the highlight of my week. I genuinely feel happy when they're around, and it brings me some peace amidst the chaos. I took a paternity test just to clear up any doubts. Thankfully, there's no confusion. They're definitely my sons. But the situation with the divorce terms is still murky. Living with my parents as a father of two is not exactly where I envision myself at this stage in life. I'm fighting for a significant amount of money from my soon-to-be ex-wife, and she's going to take over the mortgage for the house. She agreed to take over the mortgage, but only offered me 1/3 of the money I'm asking for. Her reasoning was that this was the amount I had contributed to building the house. It's frustrating because I didn't cause this situation. I'm not guilty of any of it. 1/3 isn't going to help me find a place to live, especially since I need a decent flat. So, the conversations between our attorneys continue, but I feel stuck. The real kicker is that she wants to keep the house. However, during our last discussion, I learned she might be forced to sell it. Honestly, she should have considered this from the beginning. There's no way she can manage paying the mortgage and giving me the money I need. It'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds. We also have to negotiate other financial matters, like child support. She's asking for way too much, and it's becoming a sticking point. To make matters worse, she insists that I should be the one to pick up the kids from the small town and drive them back to her at the end of the weekend. That's a lot of fuel and time on my end, especially when she should be the one dropping them off. Last Sunday, her sister invited me to her daughter's communion. I decided to go so I could spend more time with my boys. Every family member knows my decision is final, so nobody tried to persuade me otherwise. I just focused on taking care of my boys while everyone else drank and ate at the table after the ceremony. However, at one point, my wife asked me if my decision was truly final. I looked at her and calmly told her that yes, it was final, and nothing was going to change that. I was there for my boys, to spend as much time with them as I could. Then she started saying how remorseful she was and how much she regretted what she had done. She claimed she had ended the relationship with the other guy and even went to an exorcist, telling him every detail of the affair, leaving it in God's hands. I replied that I didn't care about her priest and that if anyone deserved to hear the truth, it was me. Honestly, at that moment, it was just laughable. I decided to give her one chance to tell me everything. I asked her how many times she had been intimate with him. She replied that she hadn't. So, I pressed on, reminding her about the party with her friends from work back in November. I asked why she had rented an Airbnb for the night instead of just sleeping at one of her friends' places. Hearing that seemed to hit her hard. She went numb and struggled to find words, finally asking, "Why do you need to keep torturing yourself with this?" It was infuriating. I wasn't trying to torture myself. I just wanted the truth. But it felt like she was more concerned about her own discomfort than taking responsibility for her actions. I explained to her that if she was truly remorseful, she wouldn't continue to lie 2 months after I left. That was just one example. I told her that to me, having sex over video chat was the same thing, and I knew she had done it with him. She couldn't even count how many times she'd been intimate with the other guy. Then I asked her how she imagined us getting back together when she could start a conversation with me and lie the next second. I pointed out that I would be checking her phone every day, and I could see the discomfort on her face. She replied that wouldn't be trust. It would just be treating me like garbage. But our son interrupted us before I could respond. As the conversation wound down, I finished with, "Remember, you didn't just cheat on me. You cheated on our 2 little wonderful boys too." That hit her hard. She started yelling that this would be the last time I said something like that in front of our kids. It's funny because her sister had told me how my wife was suffering and crying every day because of all this. It just made me realize how two-faced she really was. Crying in front of the family and yet still lying to me. She even had the audacity to tell me that if she wanted to, she could be with the other guy, and her family couldn't do anything about it. As if I should be thankful that she ended it with him, and that she was now in control of not being with him. It felt like she was trying to put a positive spin on her actions, as if her choices were some kind of gift to me. I can't shake the feeling that this situation isn't going to end well for my boys. My older son has been acting nervous lately, and I can see the toll this is taking on them both. It breaks my heart, but I'll always be there for them, no matter what. Our attorneys finally came to an agreement, and the divorce will happen shortly. She's taking the unfinished house, and the mortgage is exclusively hers now. I want the house to be for the kids. I don't want anyone saying that I caused its sale as part of my revenge. I also can't bear the thought of living in her small hometown, an hour away from the capital city where I am now. I'll be taking back what I put into the house, which isn't a bad amount at all. The child support amount we agreed on is reasonable too. Plus, We settled that she will drop the kids off at my place in the capital city every other weekend. I just have to drive them back afterward. Even though I see my kids almost every weekend, it's still not enough for me. The pain of being apart from them is sometimes overwhelming. I can't stand the thought of my 1 and 3-year-old boys living without a father just because their mother can't behave. I wish I could have them full-time, but unfortunately, that's not how the law works in Poland. I'm considering starting to drive there in the middle of the week or something to make it work. I need to find a way to be more present in their lives and support them through this difficult time. As for her, she keeps messaging me, pouring out her heart. She says she loves me, wishes she could turn back time, and that she suffers every day because of her actions. It's astonishing to see how much she has softened. She even told me she no longer thinks checking her phone would be treating her like garbage. In fact, she encouraged me to do it whenever I want, and she said we could move out of that small town to the capital city together. In a surprising turn, she agreed to tell me every detail about the affair if I would take her back. She even came to my parents' house to apologize, which felt like a significant shift. Someone must have talked to her. It's like a light bulb went off. Now, she's willing to do everything to show her remorse. Her last message hit me hard. She thanked me for not selling the house and for ending things amicably. She mentioned agreeing to my terms, which means accepting the divorce in court, but she also added, "Let me just tell you that it will not be true. I don't want this divorce and love you very much. I know you don't believe it and I understand, but I hope I will have a chance to prove my love to you one day. I love you and I'm sorry for everything." Words like that sway me, and they don't help with my healing process. Part of me wants to believe her, but another part is terrified of falling back into the same cycle of pain and betrayal. I know I have to stay strong for my boys, but it's hard when she seems genuinely remorseful. It creates a whirlwind of emotions that makes it difficult to focus on what I need to do moving forward. I would be lying if I told you her words don't affect me. The vision of my boys growing up in the capital city instead of that small town is tempting. I genuinely believe she's struggling alone with 2 small boys. But at the end of the day, she did what she did. She cheated and ruined it all. I thought time would help, but the wound heals very slowly. I know I need to stay the course and end this for good. I'll update one day, maybe when I finally find happiness again. But I can't help but question her sincerity. Is she truly remorseful? She only agreed to tell me the details of her infidelity if I consider coming back. Why not right away? It took 3 months for her to show any sign of remorse. And when she apologizes, she does it over Messenger instead of calling or coming to see me. It feels distant and insincere. To make matters worse, her family has turned against me. Her mother has called me a narcissist, and her sister accuses me of wanting to profit from the divorce while leaving a woman with 2 little boys. Their support for her is disheartening, making me feel even more isolated in this situation. Yesterday, I visited my kids for a brief time, and she offered that I could stay the night. I left, of course. I would appreciate some insight into my situation. D-Day was April 7th, and after almost half a year, my mindset has become clearer, though complex situations require me to answer the same questions every day. The questions I grapple with are, do I still love her? Could I go back to her just for the kids? Do I want to return to the small town where she lives and finish building the house? Would I feel comfortable with myself in 5 to 10 years, knowing what she's done? The answer to all these questions is a definite no, without any hesitation. Yes, I love my kids immensely and would want to see them every day, but I can't. I want to love her, but I can't, despite her wanting me back. I would love to have that family back, but I can't. I wish I could forget about everything, but I can't. At one point, I even offered her a second chance. I suggested she move to my city with the kids so we could start anew. But she didn't even agree, telling me she has her family's help in the small town and won't sell the house because she wants our kids to have something in the future. It feels like she's prioritizing her comfort over what could be a fresh start for all of us. When I told her that a family is not just a building but a mother, father, and kids, she fell silent. In that moment, I realized there is no us anymore. There's a mutual agreement that we've reached a deadlock. No middle ground exists between us. I explained that I will not continue my life in that small town because that's where the affair began. He noticed her on the street, drove by, and called her. I emphasized that I absolutely refused to finish building a house located just a mile away from her affair partner's family home. I can't live another day worrying that she might run into him. He lives abroad but visits family 2 to 3 times a year. That's just too much uncertainty for me. Our conversation ended there. I hate that small town, and she doesn't want to move to the capital. It feels like we're stuck in this cycle of unwillingness to compromise. As for the house, we agreed that I would take back the money I put into it, and she would keep the building for the kids. While it's a practical solution, it's also a stark reminder of what's been lost. The house symbolizes everything that's gone wrong in our relationship, and even if it could have been a home for our family, I refuse to let it hold me hostage to the past. She's now expressing concerns about one part of our agreement, which states she cannot sell the house until the kids turn 18. If she sells it before then, she'll have to split the proceeds with me. She argues this is unfair because she plans to finish the house with her own money, and if she sells it, I would receive half of a potentially much more valuable completed home. When I asked her why she would even consider selling it, she said she can't predict what her future will look like. At this point, I can't trust her, and I'm leaning towards just selling the building. I struggle with the idea of selling the house that was meant for our kids. Today, she sent me a message asking for my answer to a question. I want to ask you this here because if we talk in person, we'll just end up shouting at each other. You've told me how you feel about me and my actions, and I don't want to revisit those discussions. So, I'm asking, do you want to forgive me and move past what happened to rebuild our family? Or have you already decided that you can't forgive me and won't ever return to our relationship? Please think it over and let me know your decision. I believe she isn't in a position to demand that I be specific about my feelings right now. I suspect there might be someone else involved, and she wants to clarify things with me. I responded that I'm worth more than just a conversation over messages and that we need to talk in person soon. During our conversation, I laid out my 2 conditions for our marriage to continue: moving to the capital city and cutting all ties with her affair partner and his family. She understands the second condition, but the first is a major obstacle she isn't willing to overcome. She expresses remorse for her actions but isn't open to relocating to Warsaw because she believes we won't find a beautiful home there. Even small apartments are quite expensive to rent. She argues that our kids have a comfortable life in the small town, where she only pays for the flat because it belongs to her father. If we moved, she would have to pay 4 to 5 times more for a smaller apartment, in addition to all the bills. Plus, she has her family and friends nearby to help with the kids after work. While I understand her perspective and see that the kids are happy, it feels like she's created an impossible situation for me. She mentioned that if we moved, it would only benefit me and be about feeding my ego. It's tough because she has valid points, especially since the kindergarten in the small town is owned by her sister, and we pay almost nothing for it. I stand firm in my decision not to live in the small town. While I understand that it may not make sense for her and the kids to move, we've agreed that I will continue visiting and spend as much time with them as possible. I'll take them to Warsaw every other weekend. She has assured me that she won't see anyone else and will wait for me, claiming that in the future, I'll see she remains single. I find it hard to believe, but honestly, I don't care. Perhaps it's for the best since the kids will have me as their sole father figure and not some random man. During our conversation, she said things that clearly indicated a lack of true remorse. When I asked why she hadn't called me even once during our separation, only texting me, she responded that she didn't have the time with 2 kids running around. She also stated that she would never again discuss the affair or provide me with any more details if I asked. She has drawn a line, refusing to share anything further because I told her family about some facts she didn't want me to disclose. She told me that the AP had been writing to her for many years, and she always rejected him. However, she claimed that when he reached out last year, it was my passive behavior that prompted her to start the affair. I simply replied that what she said was beyond disgusting, and she just rolled her eyes in response. She replied, "You're only thinking about yourself. You're the only one who feels sorry for yourself." I looked at her with a mix of anger and disappointment, my voice cold as I spoke. "You know what? You are the most disgusting human being I've ever met. After everything you've done, it's clear to me that no matter how many chances I give you, you'll always be the same. An immoral person who can't stay faithful. I can't keep living like this, hoping for a change that will never come. I've made my decision. I'm going ahead with the divorce. Every weekend, I make it a point to see my kids. It's the highlight of my week, those precious moments when I get to be their dad without the weight of everything else hanging over me. We have our routine. I pick them up, and we spend the day together, just enjoying each other's company. After the divorce, I had the court order my ex to drive to the capital for our visits. I wanted to make sure the kids had a stable environment, and that meant they'd come to me rather than me going back to that small town. I know it's not easy for her, but I can't concern myself with her feelings anymore. I need to prioritize what's best for my kids. As I started to rebuild my life, I decided to dip my toes back into dating. It felt good to connect with someone new, to feel that spark again after everything I had been through. I wasn't looking for anything serious, but I wanted to enjoy myself and see where it might lead. When my ex found out, she wasn't happy. I could see the anger and jealousy in her eyes. It was almost amusing, really. I calmly told her, "You made your choices, and I'm allowed to make mine. I'm moving on, and you need to accept that." I wasn't going to let her dictate how I should live my life anymore. I had put up with her actions for too long, and now it was my time to find happiness again, no matter what she thought. It felt liberating to finally be in control, to move forward without looking back. A certain news came to my ears a few weeks after my divorce. When I heard about my sister-in-law's recent troubles, it was hard to feel any sympathy for her. She had always been a bitch to me. It didn't surprise me at all when I found out her husband caught her kissing another man. She had been playing with fire for a while, and it seemed like she finally got burned. Her husband was rightfully furious. Can you blame him? She had betrayed him in the most humiliating way possible. The whole situation escalated quickly, and in a blind rage, he beat up the guy she was with. But the real villain here was my sister-in-law. She had orchestrated her own downfall with her reckless actions, showing her true colors. She didn't just cheat. She flaunted it, thinking she could get away with it without consequences. After the confrontation, he tossed her out along with all her belongings, and she ended up back at her parents' house. I can't say I feel bad for her. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.